Good afternoon. It is now 4 p.m., August 6, 2019, and I call to order the regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Victorville, and the City Council sitting as the Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, successor agency to the Victorville Redevelopment Agency, the Victorville Joint Powers Financing Authority, the Victorville Water District, and the city as housing as its successor. May we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Cox?
Here.
Councilmember Gomez?
Present.
Councilmember Jones?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez? Mayor Garcia?
Here. I don't see anyone in the audience that would like to address the council. Therefore, can we have closed session announcements by our city attorney, please?
Thank you, Mayor Garcia. We have only one item this evening. It is anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D2, and the facts and circumstances related to that are set forth on the agenda, and it's on behalf of the City Council. To the extent there is a reportable action, we will report it either at the conclusion of the closed session or at the commencement of the 5 o'clock session.
Thank you. So at this time, we will recess to our closed session, and our regular session will convene at 5 p.m. August 2nd, 2019. And before I start, I would like to say that being that it's National Night Out, and in order for our council to be able to participate and meet and greet our police officers, we started our meeting 1 hour earlier. So I hope we do have an opportunity to go out there and do a little mingling with the public and our police officers. So at this time, I call to order the regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Victorville. And the City Council sitting as the Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, successor agency to the Victorville Redevelopment Agency, the Victorville Joint Powers Financing Authority, the Victorville Water District, and the city as housing as its successor. May we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Cox?
Here.
Councilmember Gomez?
Here.
Councilmember Jones?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez? Mayor Garcia?
Here. And at this time, could we have closed session announcements by our city attorney, please?
Thank you, Mayor Garcia. We had only one item this evening. It was anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D2, and the facts and circumstances related to that are set forth on the agenda. At this time, there's no reportable action with respect to that item.
Thank you. The invocation this evening will be delivered by Pastor Des, and I'm sorry, I don't have a last name, of Victorville First Church of the Nazarene, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Police Chief Rick Basinger, so please stand.
Father, we thank you for this breath of life that you have so graciously given to us, for the ability to live in a country when we are able to be heard. We ask your blessings upon us this evening, at those upon who are called to service, and upon those who are here to listen and to hear. So thankful for the privilege to live in this wonderful country. So, Father, in the name of Jesus, our Savior, bless this session. In Jesus' name, amen.
The Republic for which it stands, one. This evening, we do not have any proclamations or special presentations. So I will ask our city clerk to please present the agenda to council and any revisions to the agenda.
The Victorville City Council welcomes the public's participation in tonight's meeting. Anyone wishing to speak during public comment or on a particular item will be required to fill out a white speaker card located in the lobby and give it to the city clerk. The mayor will call upon each individual who has submitted a speaker card. Comments are to be limited to 3 minutes per individual or less as deemed necessary by the mayor. All communications are to be addressed directly to the City Council, not to the members of the audience. In accordance with state law, the City Council may not discuss or take action on any non-agenda items. The Council may receive testimony and set the matter to a subsequent meeting. Any person or group who interferes with the conduct of a City Council meeting by interrupting and/or disrupting the meeting is subject to removal. A peace officer may be requested to assist with the removal should any person or group fail to comply with an order of removal by the presiding officer. Any person or group who resists removal by a peace officer is subject to arrest and prosecution. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any items on this council that might be a conflict of interest to any council member or board members should be identified at this time. Are there any items on the agenda this evening that need to be identified? None? We do not have any appeal hearings this evening. Therefore, we move on to public hearings. And item B1, a public hearing to hear arguments for and against a general plan amendment, a zone change, and a conditional use permit to allow for a church and associated services at 16534 Victor Street. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
That the City Council find the proposal exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to CEQA Section 15061B3 and 15301. Adopt Resolution Number 19-059 approving the General Plan Amendment. Introduce Ordinance Number 2393 by title only, approving the zone change, and adopt Resolution Number 19-060 approving the conditional use permit.
Thank you. At this time, do we have any questions of staff by council members? You have a 2-minute time limit. Any questions? None?
Yes. So my question to staff is, does the city have any records of how many CUPs in regards to its equivalency to the request that we have tonight has been done? Any figure, approximation, or actualization of numbers?
Not offhand, but that's certainly something we can research and follow up with the council on.
It would be nice to provide some history in terms of data so that council can independently make choices. I've requested this on multiple occasions, and I think the history of something of this nature would definitely help council to make a decision if it's been done in the past, and if it hasn't and it's one of its first of its kind, how shortly that has been done. So I would appreciate that as data provided in the next council meeting in terms of something of this nature for CUPs.
Thank you. Yes, that's actually the first time I've heard of such a request from the council. Certainly, if the council so desires, we can provide that without a
So
problem.
as an individual council member, I would like that data in my inbox for this particular item, since we're going to wait on council to make a vote on that.
Can we take a vote on it now?
We're not going to vote on that.
I don't know of any council member that has any problem with this.
Yeah, they don't. So now, as an individual council member, I'd like a hard copy of that information in my inbox, if that would be so kind.
My suggestion would be from here on, when you have a suggestion, say it's my suggestion, not council.
No, as a council member, we work as a body. But if we don't work as a body, then I want to work as an individual receiving the data
Okay, I
to
will
make a rational
continue.
information.
Are there any other questions?
So Keith, are you going to
Yes,
be
I
able
have
to
a
supply
question.
that? I'm not finished with my question.
Go ahead.
I have 2 minutes and it hasn't been called out, so you're out of order, ma'am. 2 minutes, if they're up, I can no longer speak, but my 2 minutes are up. They're not, so for the public manager, the city manager, I would like hard copies in my inbox. Would you be able to supply that to Councilmember Gomez? That's a question, city manager.
Go ahead.
So I'm sure Gloria was able to express it, but if I need to with my 2-minute time limit, I'm going to say that what I'm asking for was, does the city have any records of how many
You have
CUPs
30
in
seconds.
regards to the equivalency to this request has been done? For this particular, how many have we approved? This is the first of its kind. If it is, I would like to know. If it's very casual and always done, then I just need the data to show it. That's all I'm asking for.
Specific to this site or citywide?
specific to a CUP for churches from a C1, so we can be adopting what we're adopting today specifically and what we've done in the past. Is this new, not new? I don't know. This is the first of its kind that I've seen come in within the last 3 years, so I'm requesting information to make a
time is
rational
up.
opinion. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I have a question,
Yes, go ahead.
if I may, just in terms of procedure, because I'm not sure exactly what we should be doing here, and I certainly wouldn't want to deny any council member necessary information, but it's always been my understanding in working in governance that you cannot unilaterally direct any staff member to do anything, that those types of things come as a result of direction from the council. So
Thank you.
I don't know if I need a legal response on that.
I-
I just want to make sure that we're proceeding carefully.
That is correct. That's set forth in the municipal code as well as in the policy manual.
So as a point of order, I'm being asked as a council member to make a public request. And that's what I gather from this information from Mrs. Jones and the city attorney.
A question?
My question is this. I noticed that in terms of the resolution, we have a question of going to commercial, and this is a church. And I noticed also the purchase of a college, but it did not verify or even list the associate services that are going to be provided by this church. My question is, what type of services are being included if we were to change this? My question is because it's come to my attention of the idea of a homeless center on 7th and Victor. And I'm wondering, is this a part of that so-called idea, or is this simply a question of the services of the church, the attendance of their congregation to, let's say, to the college? Are they classes going to be offered? What is going to be offered on this that they require 0.90 acres to be changed to commercial? What is the intent when the church is nonprofit?
Good evening. Yes, I can speak to that. So the action to allow for the C1 zone would conditionally allow for churches. So as part of the proposal today is a conditional use permit. So within that conditional use permit, they're limited to what they've told us in their application. So there is going to be like a Bible study, but there's no other additional services where there'd be like a soup kitchen or anything like that. There is conditions that if they were to have a temporary event, that they would come and get a temporary use permit from the city.
My only concern is in regards to the changing of the zoning, is that by permitting them to go to commercial, are we also implying that whatever services associated to the church is also being approved by the change of the zoning? That's my question. Is this just a simply zone change, or does it include services that are to be included within the church? Because it said associated services. I question that.
Yeah, it's actually both. You're taking action on to change the zone of the property to C1, which would conditionally allow for assembly uses such as churches. And then with the proposal today is also a conditional use permit that outlines what actual services are provided. So it said associated services, but that was just in like the general description. The conditions of approval for the conditional use permit go over the hours of operation, and in this case, the Bible study classes that would be included.
These services be other than religious? My question is, it's an
You have 30
open-ended
seconds.
statement, and I don't understand when they say associated services. I just want to make certain that what we're doing is giving them more property to be able to serve their congregation. That's my intent. But I'm asking, if we agree to this, does it open another category where they can do other than church services, enticing such as classes,
Your time is up.
teaching, and so forth? That's my question.
Yeah, so they did stipulate in their conditional use permit, which is
They can
before
do
you,
whatever they please.
that they are asking for, in addition to their normal services, where the congregation would come to service, they would have other services like in this case,
Classes
a
and so
class. Yes.
Thank you very much.
What's that? Yes.
All churches located in C1?
No, there are churches that are in non-conforming areas of the city that, yeah.
Phrase, it's got to be in a C1. So
s-
this is conforming to a
Yes,
church.
C1 or within our residential districts, they're also permitted with a conditional use permit.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? I open the public hearing, and I do not have any speaker cards. Therefore, I close the public hearing. And Madam Clerk, can you read the title of the ordinance number 2393?
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Victorville adopting the zone change portion of case number PLAN 19-00021, a zone change from CA, Administrative Office Professional, and C2 General Commercial to C1 Neighborhood Service Commercial with an environmental exemption on property located on approximately 0.90 acres and at 16534 Victor Street.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I move staff recommendations.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Cox, seconded by Councilmember Jones. Any further comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Now we move on to consent calendar. And I have to announce that consent calendar items C1 through C7 may be approved with one motion. A council member may comment on items or ask for minor clarification without the need for pulling the item for separate consideration. Only items requiring detailed deliberations should be pulled for separate consideration. So we have items C1 through C7.
Move approval of consent calendar.
Second.
I'm going to pull items C2, 3, and 4.
That was 2, 3, and 4.
Madam Mayor, may I venture a motion then? So I move that the council and the boards that we serve, or in the capacity that we serve on other boards, to take action in accordance with the recommendations set forth on the consent agenda. That's items C1 through C7 with the exceptions of C2, 3, and 4 that will be handled as separately.
Was that a motion?
Yes.
Okay. Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Jones, seconded by Mayor Garcia to approve items C1 through C7 except for C2, 3, and 4. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
So I need clarification. C1, C5, and C7, pulling C2, 3, and 4. I'm not voting equally on all of them, and that's what it appears that was said.
We pulled 2, 3, and 4.
Right. So you're not interpreting as a vote in one, right?
We're pulling 2, 3, and 4, so we're taking a vote on 1, 5, 6, and 7.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Now I move on to written communications.
We need to go through C2, C3, and C4.
Oh, we still need to do.
For item C2, I have several questions. Would staff please address the concept of equity share in general terms for the benefit of understanding the specifics? To A, the substitution of trustee and deed of reconveyance. B, resolutions number 9-065 and the original deed of trust in the promissory note. And after your generalization summary, please contextualize the $23,000 assistance money that was provided to the participant, along with addressing the $15,400 interest, which is the equity share that was gained from this loan to the first-time home buyers with who have very low and moderately low income, which I'm assuming are subsidized by federal monies, state monies, and local fundings. And you can correct me if that last portion of subsidies were only pertinent to certain states or certain administrations and not others. And what was the particular case equity share, actual equity, the accumulated, and I referred to page 103 to 104. The percentages that were based on the MAP loans that were relative to the property purchase price. In other words, was the property purchase price a market value or the appraised value of the time of the purchase? Has there in the past or currently been any considerations from the city and other agency or any agency stakeholders to reevaluate the MAP loan and other controlling documents, such as loan requirements, to further alleviate the equity share calculations to further benefit the assistance that's provided to individuals who are very low to moderately low home buyers for the first time? Was the participant notified of this consent calendar, and at any point has the equity share been considered an idle fund? If so, where has this been invested, and what does Fund 205 refer to? And definitely C4, there's definitions that are applicable, but they're affecting the bonds and the names. And if you can go back and tell me how specifically, since the reporting doesn't actually show these.
Madam Mayor and members of the council, if I might, this is a subject that we have had discussions about in the past, and very specifically addressing the questions, trying to describe, define, consider revising equity share. That's something that we discussed earlier in the year, and it was recommended by the council that as a part of the budget, upcoming budget that we eventually approved in June, that information be provided, and the council was to consider if it wanted to take on continued deliberation as to whether or not it wanted to modify the program. That information was shared just before, I believe, the budget being approved. It was at our workshop. It was extensive amount of information that not only described the history but explained how the program worked. So staff believes at this point, answering the questions as to having reviewed it, have we considered it, I certainly have taken the no response from this council as lack of interest in pursuing any changes any further, but certainly if the council's position on that changes, certainly we can reconsider where we're at with the program. I think notwithstanding everything else that was mentioned, the other item that was asked was with respect to describing the equity share. The equity share is an amount that's identified in addition to the principal amount that was originally loaned to the applicant, and in this particular case it serves as the interest earnings, if you will, as any other loan would generate, but in this particular case it's calculated based upon what we define as equity share, which is a proportionate share of the appreciation in the value of home. And with that, there's there's a percentage that's applied that equates to a dollar amount, and that becomes the interest earnings associated with the investment made by the agency or the city in originally loaning those monies. And I think the other comment or question I heard was with respect to describing reconveyance. And effectively, because this loan has been paid off and satisfied both in form of principal and interest, because these involve documents that were recorded on real property, on real estate, once satisfied, you actually have to remove those documents from title. So effectively, the reconveyance is that of documents that were originally securing our loan interest in the property.
Madam Mayor, may I? So on this particular one, the matter before us is really just dealing with the paperwork after the fact. The loan receivable has been settled. That wouldn't be settled unless the seller was amenable to all the terms of the sale as it relates to the city, correct?
That's correct. At this point, we're really procedural. What we have done in structuring the program so that we don't hold up an escrow, a potential sale among buyer and seller. We've actually established the program in such where so long as the amounts are fulfilled, we'll go ahead and fulfill the repayment administratively, and then because it's a real document, a real recorded document, we'll after the fact come to the council to ask for the release. So at this point, it's merely paperwork procedural at this point.
So at this time, I need a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move staff recommendation on items C2, 3, and 4.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Jones, seconded by Councilmember Cox. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Now we move on to written communications. Item D1, general fund legal expenses. The recommendation is any action is at the discretion of the City Council, and I will request Councilmember Jones to present this item, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I thank my colleagues for allowing me to place this matter on the agenda. Briefly, the council directed the city manager by way of its unanimous vote this past June 18 to provide the council with a categorical breakdown of the general fund legal expenses for a period of up to the past 12 months. The stated purposes were to help us gain a better understanding of the basis for the 2019-2020 budget appropriation and to help us remain abreast of expected trends in spending. We have before us the requested report that covers a period of 12 months. Madam Mayor, I hand the item back to you.
Thank you. Trying to find my place here. Are there any questions of staff at this time from council members? And it's a 2-minute time limit.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I do. I have 10 questions, and so to front load my colleagues, I have timed them such that I should fall well within the 2-minute time limit once I've asked all the 10 questions. So my first question is the general matters of 436.2 thousand seems to be a large catch-all. Would you please break down in general terms what one might expect to find in this category?
It is a big catch-all category, the $436,000 item. I can give a couple examples. In fact, I can think of 4 right away that might be included, or that is included in that. Examples would include a review and development of ordinances, the debt policy review was one item I'm recalling. General public records requests, along with because it was an election year. I do remember general elections related matters also being categorized to that.
Okay, in the City Council category, we spent roughly $52,000. Will you please elaborate further as to the typical nature of these expenses?
Again, through example, I think the City Council Policy and Procedures Manual is certainly something that comes to mind. Occasionally, we're dealing with FPPC research-related issues. We regularly have to offer ethics training to the council, and certainly there's an inclusion of research involving specific council-related matters.
Okay, and does our planning department have recurring legal fees, or is the approximate $41,000 an extraordinary expense?
No, the planning department, the way they function, they do have recurring legal expenses. They are represented when we do have those public meetings. So with that, it's the attendance of an attorney from the city attorney's office, along with preparation before and follow-up after those meetings. So that would be the recurring nature of planning-related expenses.
In the category for the Garcia TRO, are you able to confirm whether this line item expense was approved by a vote of the City Council for our mayor's legal defense?
It was, yes.
Since there's a separate line item expense for another of my colleagues, Councilmember Blanca Gomez, is it safe to say that sometime between April 2018, when you began this 12-month summary, and when I assumed office, that the council approved a legal defense for her? If not, please explain the expenditure of $93,409.98.
The council did not approve legal defense separately for her. When we did look at the number, it did cause us a little surprise, but when we dug into it, it reminded us of the voluminous nature of work that is undertaken on Councilmember Gomez's behalf. The items that stick out or stand out, by example, involve the 30 plus or minus individual public records requests that she has submitted, a variety of legal opinions and responses requested and offered to her during the course of time, and then research of various code and policy related violations by Ms. Gomez herself.
Okay, but nothing prevents a council member from making a public records request of her own city, is that correct?
That's correct.
If you know, can you tell me approximately how much of the expenditure shown was to fulfill the public records request, not including any cost for the duplication of records?
I don't have an exact number. I'd probably have to estimate, and if I made an estimation, it'd be about 40% of those total costs.
Does that include ancillary costs for the retrieval of documents? If not, are you able to estimate those costs?
No, it does not include it. Certainly would require a considerable amount of time to be able to do that. We can if it's the desire. It would take quite some time to find all those indirect costs.
Okay, so since the records requests originate from private citizen Gomez, is the general assumption that the information obtained is for personal use and not in furtherance of her official duties as a council member? Will you please briefly explain your answer?
It's really hard for me to decide if it's for personal use or not. The nature of the requests are just that, requests in themselves, without any real meaningful conversation, dialogue between staff to try to understand the nature of what it is Councilmember Gomez is trying to seek out or accomplish. They're just general, so they traditionally just involve response. So there's really no way for us to tell if it's for personal or professional purposes.
Is any of the records that are being requested documentation that would have already been received by her?
Yes.
Okay, and then my last question is, does Parks and Recreations have recurring legal fees, or is the nearly $14,000 figure an extraordinary expense?
They do, and it kind of varies. I think one item that comes to mind that is a recurring nature because it's real estate related, Parks Division is involved quite routinely in dealing with facility agreements for the rental or use of a number of our facilities throughout the town to be used by community groups for whatever purpose that community group represents.
All right, thank you. Madam Mayor, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Has this type of document ever been requested before? Where a listing of a year from the general budget for legal expenses? Is this the first time, or is this a custom?
It's not something that I'm aware of having been requested in the past.
Secondly, I would like to know who has the final approval of any of these legal costs? Because some of these costs we have not had, we have not approved. So what are the rules, regulations, and policies in regard as to payment?
I think the basic rule is so long as they fit within the budget allowed, especially as it deals with the council-related items, so long as it fits within the budget, we work with it.
Has any legal expenses ever been voided or disapproved? Or are they generally accepted?
No, I do know, in fact, that we review the bills. In fact, my assistant has on numerous occasions had to actually question and even kick back some charges that weren't believed to be accurate or appropriate. So it isn't something that we just citywide just randomly accept. We do review and challenge
In other
them.
words, there is recommendation whether to accept or not.
That is correct, and because there's so many different natures of billings for so many different subject matters, we do depend fairly heavily upon the department heads that are responsible for different areas of the city. And so when we do receive the bills, each of the departments are asked specifically to look at their portion and verify that first it was work asked for or sought, and then in fact the billing is appropriate in terms of what's been asked for and what's been provided.
Who has the final approval when it comes to council persons in the question of legal expenses?
Well, ultimately, that comes down to the city manager being responsible for the budget.
So I'm assuming that every listing that we have here has been itemized with actual proof, correct? In other words, it's not just a number. It can be proven to be true.
That is correct. These do cross-reference to actual bills.
Thank you.
I just have a comment. I know a lot of changes have taken place in regard to this council, and time moves on, but in the past, some time past, and believe me, I don't remember how long ago, but the policy was that legal request to the city attorney works for the council, the city manager has to work for the council. When there was a request for a legal opinion, it had to come from the whole council. My understanding is that individual council members were entitled to legal opinions. They could make the request, it went to the manager then made the determination if it had been answered in the past, or had been dealt with, or the person should have known, or a copy could be provided. And if it's something new beyond that, it would go to the city attorney for a legal opinion in accordance with the budget that was adopted. And this would be monitored monthly with a quarterly report. If it went beyond that, city council had to approve of the legal opinions. After all, we do hire the attorney and the manager. And so I'm really surprised that some of these figures have gotten so high without the city council's approval. I'm not being critical. I'm just saying that it may be something we need to look at. Because I think without a clear policy, the manager's caught in a catch-22, and so is the attorney. And these are rather extraordinary fees. Most of them can't be avoided. Some can. I think it's a matter that we need to look at in the very, very near future.
Any other questions?
I have a comment too. It's very clear to the audience, those watching me on social media, and those being streamlined, that the amount of information that I request is because clearly I will never get a vote from any council member, Jones, Ramirez, Cox, or Garcia. And so these are the tactics that they use to try to embellish Council Member Gomez doing all this. Well, as a council member who serves and advocates for you as our community, am not able to request data to make knowledgeable information come through votes as an individual member through the California Public Records request is what I have done. And I will continue to do, regardless of the loopholes that you think you are stymieing. It's not going to happen because this is a public right, not necessarily a council team right. And so that's one of the benefits that we have through our state legislators that are able to adopt things so that when we have teams that don't want to function as teams and want to silence the masses who is being advocated by a particular council member is not going to happen. And lastly, Cox and Kennedy didn't have an approval over this council to have legal opinion to be submitted formally either. But of course, they're not going to bring stuff like that over here to you because in a team of 4, they need to target the one person in a new election because that's what you do. Everything is political and is politicized. And that's why you can see that up here, when we try to represent you, there's going to be a chasm. There is no bifurcation in terms of trying to get all of us, our fiduciary duties to assist you. And I think that's so apparent that just me reiterating it just creates the narration of why we know we have to come to council meetings and keep accountability to every single council member and our executive teams and our status quo business as usual mentalities.
Madam Mayor, may I ask if I have any additional time to ask one follow-up question?
As a point of order, you don't have any time.
You are out of order, Ms.
Madam Mayor, you can grant the time if you so wish.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Cox.
Need a motion. I make a motion that we grant additional time for any of the council members to respond to this item because it's very necessary. It needs to be discussed, especially in light of what I heard Ms. Gomez indicate that Kennedy and I had free access to legal opinions, which is absolutely untrue, and she's well known.
So I'll second your motion.
Not true. So I make a motion to add additional time. Mayor, you have the gavel
Second.
to the individuals who wants to finish their comments.
I second the motion.
It's already been seconded.
Call for the vote.
Motion by Councilmember Cox, seconded by Councilmember Gomez. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed?
Oppose.
Motion carries with Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez voting no. Is there a specific amount of additional time?
That was
To give an additional.
Questions, as I understand it, or people want
Yeah,
to
we
finish
need to
their
discuss
comments?
this. Yes.
I'll comment during the actual comment period once.
Okay.
I don't-
No,
okay.
actually, you
I don't
can
know
go
that there's
ahead
going to be
and
any
speak
motion
now.
that comes forward on this, but so just to be clear, because I think Councilmember Cox raised a very good point about individual council members not unilaterally directing our city attorney to provide a legal opinion, that comes by way of the council as a whole. I understand that, but some of these charges, and I'll just bring out Councilmember Gomez as, for example, this is something, the nature of the requests and the work that was needed to be done would not come before the council necessarily because some of the matters were of an urgent nature and public records requests the council has no say in regardless. Is that a fair statement?
That's correct. I think the right way to characterize that is that they're generally requiring administratively natured work, part of our regular daily business.
And that's within your purview to make those decisions.
Correct.
Using that as an example. And I think I'll reserve, I just have a comment or two to make when we get to that point. So that concludes my questioning.
Thank you.
No, except that we're all here trying to accomplish the same thing. And if we need an education in regard to why we're here, we have the League of California Cities, we have the government codes, we have anybody can sit on and read and study them. But one of the things that I kind of get the idea, and it's on my own opinion, is that one day I was talking with staff in a casual way, and two of the staff members were talking about this list of public records request, and it was simply meant to harass. And, and so we'll show you, we have a list of 50 questions that shouldn't have been asked to begin with, but we're entitled to them, and we're going to come a point that it may be the public right to make a request for legal opinion, or a request for public records. But my understanding is that after 5 years, we don't have to keep certain records, and they're not entitled to those requests. So we need to find out exactly what staff has to respond to. Most of the time it's not a problem, but I understand it's become a problem. When you have individuals that make up to 35 and 40 requests, it's just harassing, and we know it. The nature of the question, staff should not have to spend an inordinate amount of time answering those. I don't want to keep the public from getting critical questions asked, but come in and make a contract to go back or ask for a question for a contract that happened 25 years ago, has no relationship to what we're doing, has no relationship to any discussions, but something dredge up something, in my opinion, ought not be answered, So, but I want us to look at that. I want to see what we really have to do with public records request, because we can't afford to have the taxpayers and ratepayers cough up more money because somebody wants to harass the staff, and that's what it's about. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I want to reserve mine for comment too.
Are there speaker cards?
So I move on now to,
You have speaker cards, I believe, on this.
I'm sorry?
Maybe you have speaker cards on this
Yes,
item?
that's my
Okay.
next. Yes. I'm moving on to speaker cards, and I do have some here. First one is Bob Harriman.
Good evening, Council. A lot of my questions were pretty much addressed, but I would just like to say, and I've said it in the past, Councilwoman Gomez is getting her staff reports, and she's ignoring them. And then she turns around and she comes in here, she asks a question, she knows the answer, and she's wasting a lot of time and my tax dollars. Now, she sits up here continuously and says she's trying to save the taxpayers' money, okay, which is a crock. At $92,000 and extra time and labor and whatever else, however else you want to categorize it, the staff, our city clerk and our staff have much more important things to do, okay? So I would say that she should start doing her homework, just like I do on the Planning Commission, okay? I don't ask stupid questions. I don't tell Mr. Webb to go check on this for me and do this or do that, okay? So I think that we need to adopt some rules as to how far, in his example, Councilman Cox said, how far back she wants something. If it's pertinent to anything, I think somebody, I don't know if it would be the city manager, but there has to be somebody, and I'm sure there is, that looks at these, some of them very stupid questions that don't even apply, and he can make the discretion that if it's even worth spending our time on it. Okay? $92,000. Okay. So she sits up here and she complains about legal fees. Her and her other crony over here, same thing. Constantly complaining about legal fees. Constantly. Everybody says, you're spending the taxpayer money. And I look on this report and she's at $93,000. $93,000 of virtual waste. A waste of my money, my tax dollars, and everyone else that lives here in Victorville. Okay? So I would ask that from now on, if it means consolidating heads, however we need to do it, we need to have some kind of discretion as to if what she's requesting is worth our time. All right? I'm done. I think the city should be done and wash their hands, especially at $93,000. The city clerk's office has a million things to do, and spending all this
Your time is up.
on all this stuff is ridiculous.
Thank you. Maggie Martin.
Good evening, Your Honor, Counsel. I don't have my glasses, so I'm going to have to go like that. First of all, you know what I hear about out of her mouth all the time? I hear that she has a humongous persecution complex stamp on the front of her forehead. Really, it's persecution complex. It's a mental disorder. Okay, so I have a letter here from Mr. Dabornowski's office dated March of 2019. Reference my public records request in February of 2019. I'm going to do the best I can. Please accept the correspondence. Let me see if that's even relevant. Hold on. Two categories of documents I requested. Number one, all document request of Blanca Gomez for docs she should have been aware of. She could have been aware of had she been prepared before council meetings. And two, how many had how many business cards and all city staff, attorney costs, and staff time related to her requests. Initially, a local agency is under no duty to create a record that does not exist at the time of the request, government code cited. Category of one of your request seeks only those document requests from Blanca Gomez for documents of which she could have been aware prior to city council meetings. It is important to note that your request does not seek specific documents and requires the city to does not speculate on the personal knowledge of Blanca Gomez. As a result, Category 1 does not seek, it's just basically a clarification drop down. Notwithstanding the above, I discussed your request with Mr. Dave Bornowski and was informed pursuant to his discussion with you on February 19th this year that perhaps your request would be satisfied if the city could provide a general number of pages which have been requested by Ms. Gomez. Following requests, Ms. Stevens, Ms. Roche provided you with the quantity and cost of business cards given to Blanca Gomez, which amounts to 7,750 cards at a cost of $514.39. In addition, Ms. Gomez's request for documents pursuant to the Act has resulted in a production of approximately 73,907 pages of responsive public records. At least one of these requests is ongoing. These documents do not encompass day-to-day requests from staff receives from Ms. Gomez in the course of her duties as a council member. Many of these requests would likely be exempt from discussion under the Act, etc. Okay, hold on a minute. So basically, I'm going to sum it up in the last 9 seconds. It's exactly what Mr. Harriman just said. $93,000. She's a waste of our money. A waste. Put a limit on how much money she can spend for legal help.
Ramiro Rodriguez.
Everyone's getting played here, especially us, the taxpayers. We got a report of all the firehouses that turned from county to city, and we even got an itemized bill for $2 for a battery for a clock on the wall, and also for some lighter fluid sprinkled on the grass because they spray paint. They sprinkled the name of their number of their group of firemen. We have that itemized. Why can't we have itemized exactly those 93,000 or 40,000? But you know why? It's simple. It's a witch hunt. Didn't you get the memo? Haven't you read Orwell? Haven't you, listen to Carlin at least. We just want people to go up there, not ask any questions, do as you're told, vote, and don't ask questions and shut down and shut up. But you know what? $93,000, $514 for cards? Heck, I get them for $19 for $500. But you know what? We're being scammed. Somebody's always padding the bill. And look, somebody making $100,000 a year, that's $48 an hour. So when I go apply for my yard sale permit and get the papers and everything, it takes that lady, or that person, I'm sorry, half an hour. That's $24 that the city spent on me. What about somebody making $316,000 a year? That's $151 an hour. What about that person taking all that time to send you, push a button, send, or print? But you know what? If that person took 2 hours, that's $300. But he's still there working, whether he's doing that or not. That's his job, or that's that person's job. And whether you're asking for it or I'm asking for it, it doesn't matter. You're looking for us. And these 93,000, it's all padded and stuff. It's not really unbelievable. There's a K&D and all these other people. You know, last week we didn't get a chance to listen to that Procure America thing, whatever. We never even got to vote on that. It's not on the agenda now. But some people, you know, are trying to make it seem like you're the bad person. But actually you're asking questions for us. And whether the narrative of other people over here grandstanding and showing their privilege in front, and you know what, shut up, don't ask any questions. No. That's the reason you guys are up there. You're asking the questions for us. 'Cause not everybody's here. Nobody was told that the meeting had been changed. But the less people know, the better things get passed. But you know what? Forget the $93,000. Should be $200,000 because then you're not doing your job right, Blanca. Thank you.
Those were the only speaker cards that I had. Ms. Jones, did you want to, did you have any other suggestions or?
I have no
discussion?
motion to make. My view when I requested this item was that it just be an informative piece for the council. And with the stated purpose of having a better understanding as to what the projections were for the legal expenses going forward. But I do have comments whenever you're ready.
So there is no motion or second required. Therefore, I'll turn it over to our city clerk.
I do have comments, however.
Okay.
No motion.
Okay. No motion. We'll
But
open
there
up for
are
comments.
further questions or further discussion or comments.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. So, as I just stated a moment ago, the reason that this item was brought forward was to get a better understanding of the projections for the 2019-2020 budget and to have a better feel of what trending expenses would be going forward. So, contrary to an assertion that I've just heard this evening that this is a witch hunt, I must take umbrage at that, since the council, having been presented with the basis for the request, voted unanimously to bring this item forward, and that in fact included Councilmember Gomez herself. I work very hard to be fair and gracious to all of my colleagues, and I never begrudge any of my colleagues for their ideas, their perspectives, or their votes, and to suggest otherwise truly is beneath the dignity of this council. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Just to demystify Councilmember Cox's comment about information and going how far we can go back, well, today's a perfect example. We went back probably 40 decades ago just to look at today's closed meeting session. That's just to show you how far back we have to go with legal counsel and our executive team to get a better outlook at what is happening with VVWRA and any litigation processes. And
that is closed session discussion. That's privileged.
VVWRA, it's open. We already know there's
You do not have
litigation.
VVWRA on the regular agenda tonight. It was in closed session. Discussion about it is inappropriate at this point.
So that's to show you how far back we do need to go. And in terms of the terminology that was just presented today, in my opinion, for the first time about harassment, and that I'm using it to harass the staff, is very interesting, because the inception of this council, I have been dealing not only with discrimination, but also a very hostile work environment with individuals. Recently, I was accosted by Sophie Smith, and I did put that in our record, and I also submitted a formal complaint outside of this division, because this has been continuous, and it's not fair to me, and it's not fair to the people that I advocate. And so to call this a witch hunt was the best terminology that I could have heard from someone who comes out and shows his face and is able to use the public comment, noting that he might get retaliation if he ever were to submit his information verbatim to us. And so it's not fair. Our council member here was partisan. She was biased. And not only do I say that it is, a lot of us see it that way. And if it's not, let's not address the questions and make them 50% for Blanca Gomez and the others not. If we would have done that, we would have played a more careful game, and we wouldn't show that it was a witch hunt and it was political. But unfortunately, we have differing opinions, and the opinions have been set on the record, and we choose to decide what the interpretation is based on the speakers that have spoken.
Madam Mayor, so with regard to the questions that I asked, it was many of them were related to the $93,000 expenditure, and I might just concur with our city manager, who said that that number was a surprise. Well, certainly it was a surprise to me, so I wanted to learn more about it. And I think it would be appropriate, given the comments that have just been made about being subjected to discrimination in a hostile work environment, I think was the term. I must ask this at this time, is Councilmember Gomez contemplating litigation against the city?
You know, it's very interesting. That is not a topic matter, and as a point of order, that should not be discussed in this matter. But of course, your colleagues will not agree to that, and you can probably hear them, and I would be submitting another complaint because we're going outside of what we're supposed to be discussing at this matter. And this is the very reason why I state the point that I state, because any information that would become privileged and I were to try to get it from the city would use this strategic tactic and say, Mrs. Gomez can no longer get any information because now it is privileged information. Luckily, I learned from the best who sit up here, very intellectual people. We play the same games and we learn. The only thing is I happen to tell the people what it is that's happening behind here.
Mayor Garcia, may I ask our attorney if my question was out of order?
I believe it was related to what we were discussing. It was
Thank
in
you.
order.
Any further comments?
It is now 6:02. We could take a recess so that we can participate in the National Night Out, or
You only have 3 items and then public comment. I think if you were to,
continue?
it's
Okay. we
council's
will
decision
continue.
ultimately, but
Okay. So we will move on to item D2, settlement agreement between the city, the Victorville Water District, and Western Pacific Housing, D.R. Horton, and various prior and current owners of tracts 14751 and 14992. The recommendation is that the City Council and Board of Directors approve the settlement agreement for execution by the mayor. Are there any questions of staff by council members?
I have none. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Jim, any questions?
No.
Yes, so for item D2, which is the prepaid water ownership tracts for 14751 and 14992, providing a refund of overpayments and ratifying the application of fee credits. This is a settlement. This is costing us money. So we go into closed session and then we come out here, just so you know, make the correlation closed session, and then we come out here. You might want to pay close attention to these types of settlements. And so this is, what is the history of the declarative found in the discussion reporting, which reads as follows. The sum represents meters and connection fees overpaid by D.R. Horton on behalf of Western in 2018. The Water District had required payment of the said fees when Western began requesting water meters and connections for the homes that it was building in Tract 14751, because at that time Western had not yet established itself as the rightful owner of the meter connection fees prepaid by the original developer. Was this item also in our closed session? Do you recall the dates? I think we'll be spending a little over, just under $500,000 for this one, since we're so careful about talking about monies and who spends monies and who asks the irrelevant, stupid, dumb questions around here.
Keith, do you want to respond? I mean,
Yeah.
I think the staff report is pretty self-explanatory, and this is not the city paying monies out of the general fund. This is a reimbursement for monies paid by a developer that we basically were finally able to sort out. They had paid them, and we needed to determine who was the rightful owner of the monies that were paid. It was basically an overpayment, and so we reimbursed that developer for an overpayment.
That was prepaid money that was overpaid.
And I might add, this item was a similarly natured item, was brought to the council's attention some time ago. And really this involves us as the Victorville Water District serving as the successor to the Baldy Mesa Water District, where I believe back in 2005 or 2006, it's probably somewhere in the staff report, that entity entered into an agreement with then ownership of the subject property, that ownership being substantially different than today. And in fact, over that period of time, since 2006, there's been multiple ownerships. So effectively what has occurred in this particular case is, until we've been able to very clearly document the relationship and confirm the ownership and the rightful owner of these credits, as this tract has been building out, and it is building out as we speak, we've been collecting fees just to make sure that we weren't effectively gifting away a public fund until we can prove certainty as to the ownership change over time, perfecting the ownership change over time to eventually bestow these credits to this developer.
So in other words, we are not gifting money. We're just
This is reimbursing
reimbursements for prepaid
for monies
fees.
owed.
Correct. Okay. Anyone else?
Staff report was clear.
It was very clear. I do have one speaker card, Ramiro Rodriguez.
I've been reading this settlement, all 30 pages, twice already, and I still don't understand how it goes. Please explain to me, Joe Public, how it goes from $38,000 to all of a sudden $475,000, and then $217,681. And also itemize, please, itemize, and just give us a ballpark figure. How much are the attorney fees costing us for this settlement? I don't think they're doing it for free or pro bono. So how much is the attorney making? How much is the city paying? Because I don't think it's just, we're not gifting nothing. Well, nobody does nothing for nothing. This is just passing it. Oh, no, it's nothing. But there was money out there since 2006. I don't think people would want to say, never mind, don't pay me any interest on that money. What about the fees, the attorney fees? What about the nuisance fees or whatever the attorneys charge for having this money sitting down? What if that person never would have came up? He would lost out on that money? Or did somebody just went through the books and found out, hey, they owe us this money? Would the city willingly would have given that money back? So we need to have these little things itemized, not just say 93,000 for so person. We need to itemize to see how much the attorney fees is costing the city, because this is not a free thing. And the money, we didn't have that much money. And what about 217,000? Because 85 meters at 5,000 do not add up to close to $750,000. Thank you.
That was the only card that I had. Therefore, I need a motion and a second.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we approve staff recommendation on this item.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Cox, seconded by Mayor Garcia. Any further comments?
Yes. So it's very important that we read the tonality in who responds. The craft of the narration and the titles of city attorney and city manager being who respond to my inquiries should say much. And if you look at the report for the fiscal impacts, you will notice that the approval of the settlement agreement provides for and orders a refund of the amount of nearly $500,000 to be paid to D.R. Horton. Additionally, a deposit will remain on hand to provide the credit for a meter and connection fees, whether we call it credit, fee, whether we call it taxpayer dollars. Whose money is it coming? Not from my individual pocket. This was submitted by Tara Taguchi, the deputy city attorney, and the recommendation is for council to approve the attached settlement agreement. So let's keep watching for our monies and where it goes. And the language is very pertinent as to what you're listening to. So whether you hear laughter and someone saying, ha, 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 this is only this, money. It's all about money. Where is it coming from? Our general fund? Which fund of our 81 funds or 88 funds is it coming from?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
May I? So what we just heard was a mischaracterization of the facts found in the backup data. So clearly this this matter has been handled through a settlement agreement to, in particularly, memorialize the history that has taken place with D.R. Horton, etc.
Thank you.
I have a motion by Councilmember Cox, seconded by Mayor Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries with Councilmember Gomez voting no.
Now we move on to item D3, award of contract to Christensen Brothers, Inc. for the water main relocation on Palmdale Road. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
That the Board of Directors of the Victorville Water District award a construction contract to Christensen Brothers Incorporated in the amount of $91,745.63 for the water main relocation on Palmdale Road.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council members of staff at this time? Questions?
Well, I have a question. Caltrans made the request that we do that, which is they make the request to Edison or all of the other utilities. Is that because of the widening project? That's what the staff said. So that's 395. Where are they widening it? I thought 395 was done.
So this project is actually on Palmdale Road, and it's from Cobalt Road to US 395. And what they're going to be doing is installing medians, center medians at certain locations, and shoulders. Because Caltrans had the prior rights, they had the right-of-way, the water district is responsible for the relocation cost.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I have a question. This contract was awarded because our department was not able to accomplish the work, or what reason was it for that we had to award this contract? Is that the reason for it?
That is the reason. Sometimes our own water crews will do certain work for relocating a water main or replacing a water main, but usually when the project is larger, or if their workload can't accommodate it, we would contract it out.
Do you consider this a savings in the fact that we gave this contract rather than otherwise? Because I noticed it was a relocation.
I don't know necessarily that it'd be a savings, but our in-house water crews can only accommodate so much work because they're often maintaining the system, and what they do tends to be a smaller type project. This is a larger project. Normally we would contract
exactly.
that.
So can you tell me how did you select this particular company in regards to the construction? Do they have a known history of being effective, efficient, superior?
They do. All the bidders have previous experience with the city, and all of them have a good work history on previous contracts.
In other words, they meet the requirements of your department in regards to the construction that they were going to do, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I do not have any speaker cards. Therefore, I need a motion and a second.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I move that the City Council take action in accordance with the recommendations set forth on the agenda.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Jones, seconded by Mayor Garcia. Any further comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Item D4, grant acceptance and budget appropriation for FEMA hazard mitigation plan update. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
That the City Council accept the grant, authorize the city's funding match, and approve the amended associated budget appropriation for the FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant Program in the amount of $93,603 by adopting resolution number 19-062.
Thank you. Council members, do you have any questions of staff? One?
Yes, I have a question. So there's a list of bulleted points in the discussion portion of the report. Does the fire department and other pertinent benefactors of the grant have an action plan in place and up to date to share with council, yes or no?
Madam Mayor and Council, the bullet points that are being referenced is part of the plan the planning process will identify the current hazards in the community, the risks, and also the vulnerabilities. And as part of this process, all of those points will be addressed with all of our stakeholders in order to make the community safer and better prepared.
My second thing is, would the representing departments be able to provide an overview of the dates, the times, and how the city plans to increase, build, identify, align, and communicate the developing hazard setter mitigation plans for the city, which will be in partnership with state and other local governments?
Would be premature to be able to provide that timeline at this point. And then once the hazard planning process begins and is completed, then that's when we will be able to work with our other stakeholders and partners in identifying mitigation strategies that we can then implement or recommend for implementation.
And what percentage goes to administration versus the actual programs? I'm talking about dollars and cents here.
The way the matching grant is set up is there is per se no administration. It's we have a grant and we have in-kind match that so staff time is able to be put against the overall grant, providing us with coverage of the cost.
And then what was the city's scope of work that was conducted that the federal refunds are being dispersed?
The hazard mitigation plans are supposed to be updated every 5 years. And so this is part of the normal process. The other thing to consider for this particular process is there are 3 additional annexes that are being covered. The first being drought, the second being climate change, and the third being terrorism. And those annexes were not covered in previous. They will be covered in our the hazard mitigation plan before you for consideration.
I have no further questions. Thank you for your response.
Anyone else? No? I do not have any speaker cards. Therefore, I need a motion and a second.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I move that the council take action in accordance with the recommendations set out on the agenda.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Jones, seconded by Mayor Garcia. Any further comments?
Yes, I actually appreciate the level of detail that was rendered by the chief right now, because not too many months ago, after I came with a conference at NALEO, which is a national conference, I was able to bring in some of the issues that would be a national catastrophe or something that's out of the ordinary, which would included things like a drought or anything out of the fourplex of our vision. And for you to have talked about the hazard study program, which I'm going to call, with analyzing drought, climate change, and terrorism, was one of the main forefronts that I had asked this council on a full-scale vote to try to adopt so that we could have brought it forth. And I'm glad you thought about it without listening to the proposition and took the analysis and are bringing it forth. So I actually appreciate that. It's not my credit, but you actually get credit for that, even though I brought it in earlier.
Any further comments? Motion by Councilmember Jones, seconded by Mayor Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Now we move on to public comments. And this is a 3-minute time limit. And I do have some cards. First one is Bob Harriman. After Bob will be Chef Bashel.
Good evening again. I would like the council, I'd like to request the council that from here on out, we adopt a resolution that any council member that has to be taken out of the chamber relinquish their pay for the month. Okay, so if we could adopt a censure policy to prevent this disruptive behavior, it would really be beneficial. Due to the several contentious interactions between elected officials, this policy would ensure city business is handled professionally and in a timely fashion. If we're going to continue to have the council member embarrass our city, what an embarrassment that was, then I think that there has to be consequences. So I would recommend that the council look into having anybody on the council that has to be removed forfeit their pay for the month, and that would be in discretion of the city council. So I would like you guys to maybe put that on the agenda, and we can talk about it in further detail. Thank you.
Thank you. Chef Bashel?
Good afternoon, City Council. Chef Basil, former Army homeless veteran. First of all, I want to thank, on May 18th, we had our big Veterans Gala, and we had about 1,200 people, and some of the honorees, we gave most of them theirs, but I think Mr. Cox got his. I think you got yours. Bob, I haven't gotten yours yet. Mr. Harriman, I don't think Bob's gotten his. But we just want to thank those. We're going to get those awards to them because we have a policy. I don't care what your politics are. I don't care who likes who. But if you were a veteran of ours, that's what we do because we were brothers arms and we were on the field, and that's how we operate. And then now I want to really thank, as you know, about the big hurricane that came, and our team again went out just like we did in Houston hurricane flood where we fed over 3 million people. This time we were in Toronto, and my wife put together the team. And when I asked for help, I just got to give a shout out to our mayor. She gave us a big boom help that really helped feed the people. It was really great. I want to give honor to Maggie. 3 times Maggie came with goods. Maggie, thank you very much. 3 times, even today. Denise Wells, she rode up there with us. I want to say thank you to that. Manny the Duck, and I want to thank my wife in Desert Manor, who gave us at least $60,000 worth of food, and we went up there on 110, and we gave it out. And on on November 23rd, pre-Thanksgiving, my wife and I and chefs, ACF chefs, because I'm a national chef, we're going to feed the entire city, all 1,900. We're going to lay it out for them. And Mayor, I'd like for you and those who could come with us, Mayor Pro Tem has already said she's rolling up with us and going to cook. And Ms. Jones, I heard you can burn. I know you can get down. I mean, I know you can cook. And all the other council, and Garcia, I know your history. You was Miss Pageant and all that, so I know you can cook. I just like for those who want to come, including everybody, come help me cook. Come help me feed 1,900 people. And I really want to thank my wife. I really stand up, Lisette. Lisette, she put it all together, and it's really difficult to feed a city. And I'm asking, whatever you can help us get food, but, I got to say this last couple of 30 seconds. Whether people like myself, Maggie, or whoever, Maggie came through like a champ, and I didn't even ask Maggie. She came to the house with a F-50, 150 with food, and Denise, I'm so proud of you, I'm really proud of you, I really am. And I just want to say thank you for all those who gave, but we're going to continue to help that city. Victorville was recommended, and without your big contribution, Mayor, we wouldn't have got some of the things we got. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Maggie Martin?
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. A couple of things. I don't know if any of you up there have realized that when a certain member speaks up here at the podium, a certain person speaks up here, I leave. That's a good time for me to exit, stage left, right, whatever it is, because I'm tired of people coming up to this podium beating the dead horse. It doesn't matter what any of you say to that person. It's just a male version of Gomez. That's all it is. It doesn't matter what you say, what facts you present. They just want to believe they're the persecuted, they're the underdog. I mean, this is a person who says the U.S. Census Bureau didn't even count the Hispanic rights. So the Hispanic population right. Are you kidding me? Really? So I just wanted to say that, and I wanted to say, basically, I had an exhausting week, and I'm sorry, so I'm not really functional here. But I'm going to assure you that I'm over this one right here. She's not even looking at me because she knows I'm talking about her. I'm over it. And I'm going to do everything to the core of my being to make sure this woman is not reelected. And let me tell you, in a few months, I'll be coming loaded for bear, and y'all are going to hear about it. And she'll be finished, washed up, tail between her legs, leaving town. Thank you.
Ramiro Rodriguez.
A few years back, we asked for translation services in Spanish. The response was, I'd rather pay the electric bill for the Little League than give you guys any money. The other response was, you guys should learn to speak American. Now, I am on a quest that the Hispanics are being eliminated from the census and being blocked in as white. But what that has, it hinders us from actually having a different colors within our city. How do you justify having 100% white population of police officers or fire department when we have a 55% Hispanic population up here and a 19% black population? I don't see any black or Hispanic police officers up here. But you know what? I'm beating a dead horse. You don't really need to have something big to offend people, to really subdue them with words and the narrative that comes up here and saying how the immigrants, how that person always tells me to go back to where I came from. When you pay a paid protester to talk, a Mexican person to talk about Mexican people, to say they were all drug dealers and police killers. We don't have to go to El Paso to see the hatred. We don't have to go to Ohio. We see it here. The same people, same narrative. We're coming up here just to ask for our rights that belong to us. But I've heard several times from that person saying, I wish it was like it was before. What does that mean? What does she mean by, what does that person mean by that? What as it was before? The populace has changed from 80% to now we're 55%. Mr. Kennedy got up and walked away. He never heard anything more racist when I said, hey, you guys are now 17%, 3% are leaving. And that's the reality. It has changed. A few hundred years ago, it was American Indians and Mexicans living here. Then came the English, and then came the Irish, and then came the Italians. But we pay the same. We pay our taxes. We have the same right as everybody else. Nobody owns that basketball. We can go out there and play with the ball as much as we want to because we're taxpayers also. So we don't have white skin. We're taxpayers. I'm born here. My son's born here. My grandsons are born here. And we want to teach them that it's for everybody. So when I hear I'd rather pay, that's denying me my right to ask. If maybe they would have said, hey, let's do a study. No. But then you see the tyranny right away. And that's what hurts. That's why you come up here and you sound off. We're not beating a dead horse. Thank you.
Bob Nelson. Bob Nelson.
Yes, Bob Nelson, I'm from Hesperia. You have a serious problem with your 3-minute rule, council members. 3 serious problems, actually. Quote, comments are to be limited to 3 minutes per individual or less as deemed necessary by the mayor, depending on the number of individuals wishing to speak. According to the California Supreme Court's Enrique Standards for Time Limit Rules on rostrum speakers, your meeting rule is unconstitutional on its face. To avoid repressing First Amendment protected speech during a public meeting, opined the court, a rostrum speaker time limit must include a narrow specificity provision limiting its enforcement to meetings where a time limit is necessary to ensure that all wishing to speak might be heard in the time reasonably set aside for the meeting. Your 3-minute rule lacks this essential provision. The second problem, repressing First Amendment protected speech during a public meeting with such an illegal rule is a violation of United States Code Title 18, Chapter 13, Section 241, which states it is a felony, quote, for 2 or more persons to conspire to injure, oppress, threaten, or intimidate any citizen in the free exercise or enjoyment of any right or privilege secured to him by the Constitution or laws of the United States, as detailed in this ephemeral press pamphlet, which I've attached to my speaker form. Third problem. Former County DA Michael Ramos filed a PC 403 case on an unlawful disturbance of a County Board of Supervisors meeting in 2004, had the case dismissed at its first court appearance, and told the media why. Because, reported this Sun editorial of September 18, 2004, supervisors too harsh on critics, essentially, I did nothing wrong in refusing to yield the rostrum on being told my 3 minutes were up. The editorial concluded the DA's office is to be commended for its validation of Nelson's legitimate right to dissent. The DA reneged on this validation of our right to ignore this 3-minute rule, filing a case with 3 counts of unlawfully disturbing the Hesperia City Council meeting in 2017 by breaches of the 3-minute rule. But at the 65th court appearance for People v. Nelson on June 26 this year in the Victorville Courthouse, a second jury said I did nothing wrong in breaching the 3-minute rule during the June 20th and August 1st Hesperia meetings, with the guilty verdict for the June 6th 3-minute rule breach on appeal. So a former DA, and now a jury, has said it is not a crime to violate your 3-minute rule, at least most of the time. Our founding fathers, with the First Amendment, gave us 2 rules for making community decisions. Make them during meetings open to all wishing to attend, with no rule limiting free speech, excepting urgent necessity, of course. If you follow these rules, council members, Victorville tomorrow will thank you. Thank you.
Joe Forgetti. After Joe Forgetti will be James Avery.
I've been traveling a lot, and Gloria, I didn't forget about you, but you know, I had more fun things to do, but I'll get to you. And I hear you're posting pictures on me on Facebook or whatever, and you know, from the restraining order, that could be reopened. Would you like that to happen? Rita? Now, I was really sad to see that some student got hit by a car, I guess in the Old Town Victorville. I'm sure that crosswalk is not compliant. You had your opportunity to fix it, and somebody got hurt. You just blew me off. This is very important. Now, something happened. Now, I will find out who that student is, and I will make their attorneys well aware of that the city was aware and did nothing. Another lawsuit? You're running for a Congress? I don't think so. And Rick, I still never heard from Officer Kelly about the accident that took place, a hit and run. Was it 2 or 3 years ago? Maybe 2. And I think I'll come by and have an internal affairs investigation. So I'll do that sometime within the next week, because it was always promised, I'll call you back, I'll call you back. This is, yeah, you know, I guess you're for the criminals, you're not for the people. So is that how you conduct it? Then recently I had important information about a crime that took place. And then somebody handcuffed me and put me in a police car. And I'm trying to give information. I'm just a citizen trying to help. Real impressive. Now I got a citation, take that one to court because that's my arena. I doubt that you'll post it, but if you do, okay, it's not going to be fun. It's embarrassing how you treat people.
You are supposed to be directing the council.
I'll look where I went and keep my mouth shut. I'm talking to him. He's on city council. Okay. I think he understands who I am. So, but it's
Okay,
not really good.
This is a warning.
Okay, it's not really good. You run a horrible city. What's that?
I gave you a warning.
Big deal from you.
A warning for spaghetti and James Avery.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
Yes. My name is James. This is my wife, Betty, and we've been here in Victorville going on 1.5 years. We're both from Missouri. And we recently moved in to Eagle Ranch. We've been here, like I said, 1.5 years, and there's solidarity in my neighborhood and on my block. And I thought I'd come in tonight and address you about the drag racing in our neighborhoods and the shootings, the gunshots. You know, we got concerned here over a week ago about the gunfire and the drag racing. And you can look all over Eagle Ranch and you see signs of a racetrack. I was, on my way here when I came out Topaz, I saw rubber marks. Even when I come off of Bear Valley and I go down Eagle Ranch Parkway, drag racing marks, donuts, circles, just reckless driving. But I do have to give credit to the after hours call line to the police department. They have quiet things down a little bit, but just talking, it's not going to solve the problem in our neighborhoods, I don't think. Is there something that you guys have been working on, to update us? Because we don't know anything. We just knew.
After the meeting, a staff member will contact you and talk about this. This is generally the time where individuals can bring items to our impression, but we don't dialogue because it's not on the agenda. If it were, a lot of other people may show up to have a discussion, but we do take seriously everything that comes up, and in this case, because it is an issue that we've heard about, either the manager or the sheriff's department, I'm sure will contact you after the meeting and follow up on this.
They will be contacting.
Thank you for
Okay,
coming.
because see, where we come from, we would always have a representative, a councilman.
I understand.
For our district. This is the first time that, I've come in and all the councilmen take care of the whole city, and I just didn't know.
They will be contacting you.
Okay.
Then
All right. Okay.
May I make a point of clarification?
I'll stand by till after the meeting.
The Brown Act does not permit us to respond to items that are not on the agenda. That's the rule.
Understandable.
And that is the reason why we cannot answer or respond to you or to anyone.
We appreciate it.
I understand.
I think we really, our purpose for being here today is just to bring it to the attention. I'm a marriage and family therapist. I'm a professional. My husband's retired. I'm sure everyone in the neighborhood is moved up there to keep the value of our homes. And I certainly don't appreciate being awakened by gunfire. I don't appreciate some youngsters taking advantage of the streets where they feel like they can just burn rubber, and that's called reckless driving, and it puts danger to the other children in the neighborhood. So our goal here was just to bring it to your attention, and we're just hoping that something can be done about it.
Like we said, they will be contacting you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
And we do understand.
And as a point of order, I'm going to state that Councilmember Cox was not directing staff or the manager. It was merely a clarification. Staff should always be able to address without any council member making that recommendation.
That was the last card that I had. Now we move on to reports from our city manager.
Madam Mayor and members of the council, in terms of items, I normally have items, but I think one particular item I want to address because I heard it tonight, and it's just the most disturbing thing that I've heard, especially coming from a council member, suggesting that a staff member is accosted a council member is just outlandish, an absolute distortion of the facts of what really occurred. I am undertaking an investigation because the similar allegation was made by Councilmember Gomez, which we're dealing with. It's also very similar to allegations, many of which have occurred in the past. All have been investigated and found as unfounded. I have a strong suspicion this is another one of those, but to do it in a public meeting, I think certainly we've sunk to a new low by trying to call out a staff member that does nothing but, and has done nothing but over the last 20 years, served the residents of this city and the council to the best and most professional means possible.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Did you have anything else? Mr. Mayor? Did you have anything else to report? No? Now we move on to council members' discussion and possible action regarding items for the upcoming city council agenda. Ms. Jones, do you
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. So I'm interested in placing on the agenda a closed session item in order that we may have a fuller discussion about the impact and implications of the findings in the City of Victorville Fire Services Transition Status Report dated June 11, 2019. My request has nothing to do with specific individuals or personalities, but rather business. We have a fiduciary duty to the people of our community, meaning that we are expected to make decisions in the best interests of our residents. We are expected to be honest brokers of a well-run city, and this necessarily includes the management of our assets and how taxpayer money is spent. I believe it would be an affront to our citizens for us to roll over and play dead in the face of an ostensibly neglectful and or cavalier approach to public safety that resulted in the loss of $400,000, in excess of $400,000. It was taxpayer money that purchased the assets reported in the June 11 report. Your neighbors and mine spent their hard-earned money to maintain these assets for an ongoing benefit not only to their families but to their neighbors. One need only look at the report summary to recognize that Victorville residents deserved more contractually than what it got. Much more. There was a contract to provide specific services. We need to take a close look at our legal obligations and what our next steps might be. With that said, Madam Mayor, I move that the council place on the next agenda a closed session item wherein the council determines an appropriate course of action in light of the findings contained in the City of Victorville Fire Services Transition Status Report dated June 11, 2019.
As a point of order, there are rules that govern the closed session items, and one's power as a council member, the power such that is vested to us, does not allow under closed session rules the power of the majority to put anything in closed session unless it follows different guidelines, and these have not been expressed at this moment, and I'm not sure if she's aware or we're going to go ahead and narrate it so that it fits an emergency or any of the three other options.
Madam Mayor, I believe I was correct with in terms of order on my request, but I'd certainly defer to our city attorney.
Yeah, I believe it would be appropriate. It sounded like there's a concern about the need to seek remuneration for amounts expended by the city, and that would obviously lead to potential litigation at some point or some form of legal action.
Was that your motion?
My motion was, and I'll read it again just so it's very clear, that the council place on the next agenda a closed session item wherein the council determines an appropriate course of action in light of the findings contained in the City of Victorville Fire Services Transition Status Report dated June 11, 2019.
Second your motion.
Motion by Councilmember Jones, seconded by Mayor Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries with Councilmember Gomez voting no.
And if I have time, Madam Mayor, I have one other request. So I'm interested in placing an item on the agenda for discussion and possible action related to the dying and or diseased trees on the Green Tree Golf Course. I've been heavy-hearted about this for nearly 10 months when I got my first look at them, but my concern was brought to the fore in light of the June 28 Daily Press article about a tree at James Woody Park in Apple Valley that toppled onto a baseball backstop and utility shed on Father's Day. A large branch was also reported as having fallen next to the visitor at the same park that week. So as for our golf course, it would be helpful, I believe, for the City Council to learn why our long-established trees there are apparently dying and falling over. For example, is it due to disease or lack of ongoing care, such as basic watering? I'd like to ask that we further address
You have
potential
30
safety
seconds.
issues related to diseased and or dying trees on the golf course. So with that, Madam Mayor, I make the motion that we place on the reasonably soonest agenda an item for discussion and possible action wherein the council may receive a general reporting on the overall health of the trees on the Green Tree Golf Course, together with recommendations to address potential safety issues as well as the future nurture of our mature trees.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Jones, seconded by Mayor Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Abstain.
Aye.
Motion carries. Well,
wait.
Clicked on the golf course, right? Yeah. So I'm just abstaining.
The motion carries with Councilmember Copps abstaining and Councilmember Gomez voting no.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's all I had.
Thank you. Did you have something?
Yes, I do. I feel that because of what is happening out there and everywhere regarding crime, violence, I feel that I read an article of an individual accusing our police as not doing their job. And I feel that this is a misinformation that is being said and being repeated. And I feel very strongly that I would like to put as an item on the agenda for the next time for the police department to give us a report as to the crime and violence that we may have here in Victorville, only because of the fact that I feel that what this individual said is not necessarily true. But to be just and to be fair to all residents, we need to know the truth. And I feel that having a report from our sheriff telling us what is happening and what can we do if there's any type of recommendation is very important for the safety and the health of all our residents. My concern is that life is a beautiful thing, and to lose one individual of your family is a heartbreaking, hurtful situation for life. And I would hate to feel that we are not concerned enough to have our sheriff department tell us what's going on and what can we do if there is anything that's going on that we should take care of. So my motion is to put on the agenda a report to be given to us and to our audience, to the city, regarding crime and violence in Victorville, so that we are fully aware of what's going on.
Second.
Second. Yeah, absolutely.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez, seconded by Councilmember Jones. All those in
I would like to modify that to add actual date line spectrums, because are we receiving 6 months, 3 months, 2 months, 60 days? There is no timeline. I would like a timeline set. If you're looking for the last 2 years, for the last year and a half, I would like that to be added, and I would leave it at your discretion.
haven't been here long enough to know the history of Victorville, but being that we were elected in December, I would like, personally, a report that starts in January to the present. That way, I myself am fully aware of what is going on. I cannot relate to the past, and I do not want to judge the past, because things do improve and life is significantly also improving. So I would prefer the time period to be from January to the present month of the 1st
You have 30
of August.
seconds.
I will put it on the motion as to the report.
Okay, I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Ramirez. Councilmember Jones, do you still want to second that?
Yeah,
Modification?
I'm presuming that this is a substitute motion in a
Just to add
roundabout
the
way.
date.
So yes, certainly I will keep to my second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Yes. We had a speaker tonight, I believe it was a complaint about diversity of the police and fire department. It sounded like it, at least to me. We're very proud of the diversity in our employees for the city of Victorville. I watched the process. I wasn't involved in the fire department. Very pleased with what I was seeing. Sheriff's Department we contract for, so we don't have anything to do with hiring or the employees. And so, if the individual would like to make a request, the fire department, police department, they can make that directly to the sheriff. But I do believe, since that we have a brand new fire department, the data would be interesting, and I would like to see the staff follow through with just a short report. If that's possible, I was pleased with what we have. I don't think we violated any laws, but somebody makes a complaint that there's no diversity, I think we should answer it. So if that's possible, and not violating any confidentialities or personnel rules, I'd like to make that a motion to put on the agenda. Just a short report for public information.
I would be happy to second. I just need to make sure that we can legally request that.
I think you can request it. We'll look into it and see if there's a problem. If there is a problem, you will not get a report. If there's no problem, you will get a report.
Okay.
That's fair.
That's fair.
I have a motion by Councilmember Cox, seconded by Councilmember Jones. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thomas, do you have something?
Yes. I've requested this in the past. Community has also stated the same thing. Camcorders on our police force is very necessary, not only for public safety, but to bring back the community's trust in this community. There was a pilot program for the city of Apple Valley and Highland by the county that was done. We never heard if it was actually implemented. But for the city of Victorville, we do not have any police officers with any camcorders. And so I would highly recommend for at least 2 other council members to support the actual implementation of camcorders on Victorville Police that we contract in this city. Mind you, it's been voted down before.
Is there a second?
I will second it if I understand the motion.
Yeah, I don't
Do you want the
understand
camcorders, or you just want to report on the camcorders?
No, it's actually to implement camcorders on police officers. So we'll be looking at that in the future consistently.
Well, I'd love to see a report, but I'm not going to direct the sheriff how to do his business. And that's what you're directing, that we direct.
Well, as a council member, we have the power of 3. You always tell me to count to 3. And when 3 people say something, it happens because we do contract with the sheriff's department. The next one is similar to what Cox had responded to for his first one, but not quite. We do need a diversification of our police force, particularly here in the city of Victorville, to reflect our community diversification, to bypass the seniority rules, and to have more bilingual and a diverse workforce. I've gone on with police and encountered police not able to communicate a lick, anything other than English, with a Spanish speaker, and I was able to interpret at that moment. How many other situations with any other diversities do we have that same problem?
Now,
I can expect a lot, so that is my motion to be able to bring that in.
Is that the first one or the second one? I'm
This
lost.
is the second one.
Oh, you had, but we, okay.
Is there a second? There being no second, the motion dies.
And then the next one, to contextualize what I'm requesting, is unfortunately the arrest of a resident trying to provide information to assist officers in an arrest has been perceived and shown as not welcomed. However, in my discussions with Captain Bessinger, I was assured that the community input was always welcomed and necessary and not frowned upon. If this is the case, that our residents offer information and feel repressed when what are we doing to change that perspective? And I would like to have this as a discussion and possible action as a matter to demystify any variables that have indeed stymied this perception. If we're having individuals that are arrested when they're providing information, I think we can have information from the captain or what we're doing
You
for
have
that
30 seconds.
training, anything of that nature, to make sure that we're assuring our residents that we need the full cooperation.
Is there a second? There being no second, the motion dies.
That's it.
Now we move on to, did I get everyone? Did you? Okay. You already did. Okay, I got everyone. Okay. Now we move on to E4, and this is reports from council members. And I'll have Ms. Gomez give hers first. 3 minutes.
Go ahead and give me 15 seconds to gather what I'm
I'm
actually
calling on
writing.
you for 3 minutes.
Well, I'm asking you for 15 seconds because I need to find my place.
Well, no, I'm asking you to start, please.
I'll start when I find my place.
Well, your time starts now.
So today's meeting was at 4 o'clock. Most of you had no clue and wouldn't have known based on our patterns. They're usually at 5 o'clock. Usually, I would hope to say that our executive administration brings that recommendation and the council goes ahead and adopts it so that you have at least 2 weeks, if you watch within 2 weeks the council meeting, and you would know to be here at 4. However, I have had many complaints that lack the accountability of how we are able to notice. 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. We didn't have any discretion as council, but city administration looks like they did. So if you didn't read your agenda, you're probably not here. If you think it's at 5 o'clock, you are here. And if you're coming in at 6, you've missed a couple of things. Also, I would like for this council to consider the agendas being published. I get mine's paper, hard copies. A lot of you get them online. And I was told by several individuals that the online version says that our closed session starts at 4 and the following convening as soon as our 4 o'clock closed meeting comes, which leaves it up to interpretation if we're going to start, if we finish at 4:30, at 4:35, at 4:50. But our actual hard copy says it starts at 5. So when considering mirroring the hard copies, make sure it mirrors also the one online. That's what I was told today. And I'm hoping that staff is able to make that clarification as pinpoint as possible so it's not reinterpreted differently. It looks like the city council can place anything on the agenda in closed session by calling it a potential litigation. Pay attention to the key terms that are used strategically as moves by our city council, meaning our city attorney. I don't have a letter stating that the county has claimed litigation, so can we just call it? I don't think so. There's nothing that says that we have potential litigation, and if so, nobody mentioned it here. So we're just putting stuff up the gun how I don't think we have the power to do that. That's a way to manipulate our agendas. Ahora la junta ya comenzó y usualmente estamos aquí a las 5. Votamos y de repente estamos viendo que el horario de las 4 ha cambiado a las 5. Si usted está aquí, denos una disculpa porque a veces son estrategias para que usted que está escuchando no sea parte del programa. Estamos tratando de cambiar eso. Solamente hablando el idioma es como comenzamos. Por eso, como concejal de la ciudad de Victorville, yo, Blanca Gómez, tomo la iniciativa a hablar el idioma. Aunque la gente que no lo entienda se enoje o se ponga disgustado lo que estoy haciendo. A todos los que están aquí de habla hispana, quiero que sepan que estamos juntos, unidos, abogando por tanta traducción, el conteo del censo y muchos más derechos que seguiremos. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I am very pleased to announce that I have been invited as a VIP guest to the Transportation Summit to be held at Disneyland Hotel in Anaheim in September 26, 27. For information, I am your regional counsel, District 65 rep, and I represent the entire high desert cities for you in Los Angeles every first Thursday for the Southern California Association of Governments. So this is a privilege and an honor to represent the high desert in September regarding transportation and the future of our area.
Yes, thank you very much. So, gosh, over the course of the last few weeks, I've attended an SBCTA meeting and stood in Councilmember Cox's stead at the VVWRA meeting. In mid-July, I was very fortunate and quite blessed to attend the Dreamers, Visionaries, and Leaders Fostering Hope Scholarship event. It was such a wonderful thing to see our foster youth graduating high school with their visions set high for what they look to in the future. These students had a remarkable academic history, especially in light of the particular challenges that they faced in their lives. And I am so proud of our youth that was able to overcome great obstacles in their life to move forward and do great things for our community. Also, with regard to requesting a closed session item, Councilmember Gomez's premise is faulty in that potential litigation doesn't cut one way, it cuts both ways. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Yes, certainly. There being no other business before the council, this meeting is adjourned. So let's please join our police officers on their evening.